Now that we know how to tell if a relation is a function and what a function looks like on a graph, we want to talk about function notation so we can evaluate functions. We already talked about how the domain is the independent variable. You put it into the function and you get out the range, the dependent variable. So if the function was if f of x, which we'll talk about in just a second, equal to x plus 4, if I put in 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, I get 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Now, function notation is x, comma, f of x, which previously this was always y. And it's just saying that x is a function of y. F of x does not mean f times x. It means that x is the independent variable that's put into the function because it's a function of y.
So then we talk about function notation. When the set of ordered pairs described by an equation satisfies the definition of a function. So we have an output value of f, or a function, equals 5x plus 3, which is our input value. And we have an output value of f parentheses 1 equals 5 parentheses 1, which is our input value, plus 3. So f of x equals 5 times x plus 3, and f of 1 equals 5 times 1 plus 3.
So remember, like we just talked about, it's not f times x, it's f of x.
So when we write the function notation and find the values for the given domain values, when we have a given equation of y equals 3x plus 6, function notation looks this way. If we have a function of 0, that means we're going to take the 0 and put it into the x. So we're going to have function of x equals 3 times 0 plus 6. And we know that 3 times 0 is 0, and 0 plus 6 is 6. So then we go down to the next one. It would be 3 times 1 plus 6 equals 9. And we do it again, and we do 3 times 2, which is 6, plus 6 is 12. Then we would do 3 times the quantity of x plus 2 plus 6. So then we would get 3x plus 6 plus 6, so we have 3x plus 12. Then we would have 3 times the quantity t plus 6 equals 3t plus 6.
So one thing I do want to mention to you guys is that between writing an equation and writing function notation, you're swapping out y and putting in f of x. It's the only difference, so that you can understand that x is a function of y. The next thing would be if you gotta be able to read a graph to evaluate a function. So we're saying f of 0 on the graph, f of a half, f of negative 2. All this is saying is f of 0 is saying basically when x is 0, what's y? So we look on our graph, x is 0 is here, so we go up to where it hits the graph, which is right here. And it hits the graph at 3, so f of 0 is 3. Then it says f of a half. Well, a half is here, and we're already touching the graph, so that means f of a half is 0, because at 1/2 for an x value, the y coordinate is 0. And f of negative 2, when we go out to negative 2, we go up to the graph here, which is our point here, and that's at 4. So f of negative 2 is 4, because if I wrote my ordered pair, it'd be negative 2, 4, 1/2, 0, 0, 3. But when I say to evaluate the function, this is what I'm looking for as opposed to the ordered pair.
So then graph the function. We know 3, 5, 7, and 9 are x, and 2, 6, and 10 are y. So that we can do 3, 2, then we can do 5, 6, 7, 10, and 9, 10.
And so if we want to graph our function, we can graph the points. If you really want to connect the dots, you can. but you are not necessarily required to because we didn't tell you it was a continuous function. So in our case here, I'm actually going to undo that only because we don't need it. So if I tell you it's a function, like in D, then you want to actually connect the dots. So here, you get to pick your x values. I'm going to pick them as -1, 0, and 1. I'd like to have some negative, some positive. So then it says this middle block is for showing our work. So that means the function is f of -1. So 3 times -1 minus 1, which is -3 minus 1, which is -4. And then 3 times 0 minus 1, which is 0 minus 1, which is -1. And 3 times 1 minus 1, which is 3 minus 1, which is 2. So then we graph our points. We have -1, -4, 0, -1, and 1, 2. And then I can connect my dots because I know that this is a continuous function. Put my arrowheads on the end. Pretty straightforward. Not a lot of new stuff to learn today. So I want you to give it a shot. Given y equals 3x squared plus x, I want you to write that as a function in function notation, and then evaluate it at f of 2 and f of -2. And then I also want you to, given this continuous function with the graph, I want you to find f of -1, f of -2, and f of 1. And as always, bring your questions with you.